I know we still have some time before the meeting actually begins, but if you are the designee for someone, will you please put it in the chat or just let me know so when I do roll call, I will at least be able to mark them present. So if you're just here as the designee for someone, just place your name in the chat and who you are the designee for. Thank you.
Hey, Shenika. This
Hi.
is Christine Cook. I'm in a conference. I'm actually connected with my phone, and I can't get the chat to work. But I'm the designee for Dorian Carlton.
Gotcha. I have you on here, Ms. Cook. Thank you for letting me know.
Okay, thanks.
Hey Shanika, this is James Lomax. I'm tracking 3 o'clock here, so I'm gonna go ahead and get us kicked off. I think we may have a few others here waiting in the lobby. We'll get those admitted as they come in. Just a quick housekeeping as we call this to order. I know I personally do a lot of Zoom and team calls, so if you're not speaking, try to mute out. We'll get the best results doing that. And I think that these meetings have the opportunity to be very productive and have good conversation as well. So just real quick, I wanted to lay out kind of the plan going forward after we move on from this. But today is really a good opportunity for both the subcommittees to have someone speak broadly based on their discussion topics. So we've got the procurement subcommittee. We've gotten a speaker to come speak about some of that perspective from a different market or a different state rather. And then our research application subcommittee. So we're going to hear a little bit about how some other states are utilizing some of the unmanned aircraft technologies. And so this is really just to generate a little bit of thought process, to generate some potential ideas as we go forward. We're definitely going to be more targeted in the next few meetings. So we've had a discussion. I don't want to commit here on the line, but I think Aaliyah is going to be hosting us at our next meeting for a drone demonstration. People will be able to have the opportunity to take a look at some of the hardware and ask questions, the questions that I think people want to be answered. So we're greatly looking forward to that. But with that, I will turn it over to our clerk Shenika to call roll for this meeting.
Chairman Lomax, would you like to offer the prayer before we do the roll call?
I'm happy to. Yeah, I'll do an invocation here. Lord above, please just bless everything that we're doing here to serve the people of the state of Alabama. Bring forth opportunities for us to utilize growing technologies that you have blessed us with to help better the people that live here and call this place home. So in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Clerk,
Thank
you can call the roll.
Okay. Representative Lomax,
Here.
Senator Butler, Jason Powell, Matt Sloan.
Here.
Dr. Pete Weiland or Whelan, Yolanda Robinson,
Present.
Jay Town,
Here.
Chad Tillman,
Here.
Adam Austin,
Here.
JD Diarbel.
Here.
I apologize if I messed that up.
No, that's fine.
Joey Hamilton
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
and Christine Cook.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Clerk. As I mentioned very briefly, we've been tasked with the primary role of figuring out the procurement process for unmanned aircraft vehicles. So that is going to be really our main task, but also very excited about just the potential of drone technologies in our state. So I think we're gonna look a little bit about that as well. So for those that may have just joined, it looks like there was a few. Anticipate this to be more of an informative meeting. We'll get to hear from speakers that were selected by both of the subcommittee chairs. And our next future meeting will be likely in person, and we'll likely be doing a little hands-on with Aaliyah, getting to see some of the technologies that we utilize today in the state and how we can best solve this issue. So that said, I'm this time going to turn the floor over to our subcommittee chairman on research applications, Matt Sloan.
Appreciate it, Chairman Lomax, and thank you all again for your time this afternoon. So what I wanted to do today in just kind of taking a look at some of the technology that's being used out there and some of the applications and ways that it's being used. I wanted to kind of, I think a lot of us are familiar with, the law enforcement use case. I think on the transportation side, some of the inspection use case. I wanted to bring a bit of a different perspective in today, and so I've asked a good friend of ours, Josh Wright, who's the head of the new Healthy Air program at CVS Health, to come speak to us here for a couple of minutes about some of the innovative projects that they're working on. They are just getting started. I'm fortunate enough to be part of these programs happening up in Michigan and in other places around the country, and look forward to having Josh and the team come here to Alabama as well. So with that, Josh, I will turn it over to you for an introduction and tell us what you've got going on.
Cool. So thank you all for inviting me today. Thanks, Matt, for bringing me to this group. My elevator pitch is, so within CVS, we have a couple different logistics streams. They're all under one silo, but my team manages and protects about 54 million patient packages annually. We primarily support Quorum, Care Plus, Specialty, and our mail pharmacies. Our side of logistics doesn't directly support the retail side of the logistics and doesn't directly support the OmniCare side of logistics. What's notable about that is the mail side of our business is just that, it's mail, right? So it's for one reason or another, a payer might request that a pharmacy prescription gets delivered by mail, or you may request it as a patient or an end user. Bunch of different reasons for that. The Specialty, Care Plus, and Quorum side of the business are more often than not special for some reason or another, whether they're cold chain or they're boutique, but very often they're life or death sort of drugs. So my career arc within CVS was, I spent about 5 years with retail. I ran one of our specialty pharmacies for about 3 years, and now I'm on the logistics side of things. And so whatever you think a CVS drone program might be, it's not that. We're looking at using drones in really novel sort of ways. So knowing that everybody's time is limited, we have a bunch of innovations and sort of things that we're solving for which are part of the bigger picture, right? So how we integrate with buildings, how we transport in a stable sort of way. The drone piece, for better or worse, tends to be easy. We have three main pillars to what is now branded as CVS Air Response. One is a medical logistics piece. So it's B2B. We're only envisioning B2B in any part of the near term. So whether that's CVS to CVS, CVS specialty to retail, Minute Clinic to lab, Omnicare to long-term care facility, and eventually supporting communities with whether it's hospital to hospital or whatever, sort of bringing our expertise to the table. A second leg is emergency community response. So we know that we can sort of extend our reach into communities by using additional capacity within the networks that we're envisioning to help communities deliver emergency interventions of things like AEDs and Narcan into communities. We think we have the potential to move a national standard of survivability for out-of-hospital cardiac events from a dismally low 8 to 10%, where it's been since the 50s, to somewhere in the 30 to 40% survivability range, which could be huge. The science is there, and we're hoping to sort of prove that soon. And then the last piece is a disaster response component. We realized last year that getting better data back to our teams quicker helps with our ability to respond to communities as to our store operating status, and that identifying that store operating status in really clear terms helped municipalities and states understand sort of where our operations were so they could reallocate emergency resources elsewhere. So we're lots of places, but we're not everywhere. And so identifying where we've stabilized and what the conditions of that stability is have really helped states sort of move their emergency resources around. So in Milton, in Florida, for instance, we're basically able to tell the state of Florida that we were pretty much good to go at a 94% operating capacity on the West Coast, about 40 hours post landfall. That's outstanding, and they were able to sort of release their field hospitals and emergency assets on in the path of Hurricane Milton. So pretty cool stuff there. The last piece that I'll show you is I'm only going to show you one slide in the whole deck. It's this one here. Can you see my screen? This is the piece that I'm probably proudest of, both from a CVS standpoint and just as far as the program goes. And what we're discussing here isn't the stuff that we're envisioning isn't necessarily specific to CVS. It's just healthcare, right? It's healthcare regardless of who the agency is. However, our disaster response teams, we use complex systems to restage our teams where we know bad things are going to happen. It's both a curse and a benefit to know stuff is going to happen. So we knew something bad would be happening in the Asheville area. We didn't really know what specifically, but we were ready for it. Well, we were ready for whatever it was. And as it turns out, of course, it was horrible. Underneath the red arrow here is our Quorum Specialty Infusion Pharmacy, about 4 hours after the storm had passed through and the river was cresting. By being able to see this view from a disaster teams, we were able to enable our sort of response time almost 6 days sooner than we would have in previous situations. So 2 sentences, if you're going to take anything away from sort of how we use drones and how it impacted people's lives in Asheville for our Quorum patients. And Quorum is, to be clear, it's specialty pharmacy that needs to be delivered by IV. So it's IV specialty, whether it's a feeding situation, a feeding tube, or a med that has to be delivered by IV. So the most critical of the most critical patients that are out there. For our Quorum patients in Asheville, despite having experienced a once-in-a-generation disaster experience, those patients didn't experience any change in their patient experience and didn't experience any change in their medical adherence. And that for us is like, everything else gets sort of dwarfed by that. Having run especially pharmacy firsthand, I got to know my patients. I got to know who was out there, who needed stuff from us, literally to be able to stay alive, and we take that responsibility really, really strongly. And so, in this case, to be able to impact these patients and help them out when times were at their worst was so cool for us to be able to do. So again, three main pillars: medical logistics, whether that's hospital to hospital, CVS to CVS, facility to lab. Blood plasma transport isn't part of the CVS model right now, but our systems will be able to handle that. Emergency community response for AEDs and Narcan. And then the disaster response component. So those three legs, they all work hand in hand. They all help keep people healthy and adherent. And we're pretty excited by what we're going to be able to do. And we're really looking, our expectation is to be able to bring these capabilities nationally and really give back to communities in kind of special ways. That's kind of me in a summary.
That's awesome, Josh. I really appreciate that. And one of the things too that I just want to add to that before I turn it back to you, Chairman Lomax, is there's a big focus on funding coming from the federal government on solving rural healthcare disparities, and they're looking for innovative ways for each state to be able to apply those funds. And these are the types of things that we're keeping an eye out for, because I think a lot of these are really going to enable us to make big changes. And something that Josh and I have spoken about at length is that CVS is within 3 miles of 85% of the country. My in-laws live in rural Cherokee County, and they're not near anything, but they are within 3 miles of a CVS. And so when you consider the idea of delivering a defibrillator by a drone where EMS might take 30 plus minutes to get there, and we can do it with a program like this in under 3, that's really pretty remarkable and life-saving. So really incredible stuff. Josh, thanks so much and I'll open it up to y'all's questions or turn it back to you, Chairman Lomax.
Yeah, please, if any of the committee members have questions for Joshua, I would just lead off with, is this deployment in the field, or is there a central location in any of these states where you're deploying the drones? Are you using radar systems, etc.?
Yeah, so we're just becoming operational in that piece, and we're going thoughtfully as to how we apply that. I'll let Matt speak to sort of the technical requirements of that. A lot of what we envision is very different than everybody else. So we're really envisioning operating atmosphere where, like what we're testing in Michigan, we're using Thales to bring in their systems to see operational airspace. We feel that operational operations and operational deconfliction has to be for everybody in the airspace, not just sort of our piece. I don't want to poo-poo sort of other people in the drone industry, but some organizations really just focus on deconflicting with themselves and sort of sorting out the rest of it as they sort out the rest of it. We're hoping to create a safe operational bubble that we also then become a client within. So kind of a one for everybody, and then we become a same client of that. Because of our footprint, because of our national real estate footprint, that gives us some particular advantages to creating that airspace awareness piece and creating our footprint. We think, and I'll say this lightly because I have to be careful about what I'm sharing publicly, we see huge potential here for us basically to be able to potentially break up pharmacy deserts and healthcare deserts. So using our regular footprint for our day-to-day business, but the reach of our airframes and our safety systems, we think we'll be able to reach back into communities where the economics haven't worked for a really, really long time. And maybe we can get back into those communities and reconnect them in a way that's good for everybody.
This is JD. I'm just curious. I mean, on the AAM component of this, we're just now starting as a DOT. our aeronautics bureau, we just sat in on interviews and selected a consultant. We're having a scoping meeting, I think October 9th. I mean, what kind of time frame are you looking at? Because just the state of Alabama, we are a long, long way from package delivery at this point in time.
We expect to be, we expect to be operational in 2026 in some capacity. And the way we built our model, it gives us, in theory, the ability to scale fairly rapidly and thoughtfully. Of course, there's going to be regulatory challenges, right? So there's regulatory challenges because part of what we're envisioning here are things that regulatory bodies maybe haven't considered for one reason or another. All right, so that sort of reaching back into those communities, is that a telepharmacy model, or is it more of a hub model, or there's a bunch of things we're going to have to work out, but we're trying to set the standard, like the gold standard for safety, gold standard for sort of all the pieces of this puzzle. I will pick on specifics. We'll let Wing and Zipline deliver burritos and sodas and stuff like that. Like that's their model. At our core at CVS, from my perspective as an employee, I love working here because we do the right thing, because it's the right thing to do. And so from my piece, we're trying to sort of extend that out, but we'll be functionally operational we're operational in the disaster component currently. We'll be proving the model of the multimodal medical logistics and the emergency response piece in Michigan, end of this year into next year. So yeah, pretty soon. But we're not trying to force it, but we're through the crawl stage. We're approaching the walk stage.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. You guys are definitely headed in the right direction. I'm just thinking from a regulatory standpoint, how is Alabama going to get there soon enough to, I guess, incorporate what you're trying to do? So, and I love it. It's the right thing to do. It's just, how do we get there in a timely manner? Because everything I'm hearing, we're 4 to 6 years, probably bare minimum, to get the infrastructure in place.
Yeah, one thing to add to that, and actually, JD, you're on the top of my list of folks to reach out to, because we just came from a program in Ohio where they're getting started on this effort now, and I think that there's a lot of lessons I'm already learning from that I'd love to bring back here, and it's actually Ohio DOT that's doing this program, so. I'd love to share some information with you about that when we, on offline. But in addition to that too, I think, one of the things that I know that y'all went through on the RFP for the AAM study, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of that, is focused around charging infrastructure for, large VTOL, air transport, true AAM capability versus, small UAS kind of operating in between those spaces. I think it should be both at some point, but I think there may be ways to do this sooner rather than later, and not get in the way of what y'all are trying to do from the AAM piece.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think the last conversations I had, it was package delivery kind of first. I think that's going to be a smaller. There's still an infrastructure we got to deal with, in the sky, and how do we get that done? But yeah, I'm on board 100%. Anything I can do to help facilitate it, I will.
From our standpoint, and it may apply to you guys as well, even at the state level, that's because we're such a large organization. We have a huge part of our business is just B2B, CVS business to CVS business, and that's largely. That all happens behind the scenes for most people, but being on the inside, I see it every single day and manage those logistics components. So because we control both the delivery point and the receiving point, and because it's more commercial, we see that as a lower hanging fruit, and allows us to sort of work through a lot of the tricky bits within a much more controlled environment than a B2C model, which the industry will get to someday. But we know we can make an impact probably right out of the box in that B2B model.
Are there any more questions for Josh/CVS? Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the feedback. You know, I think some of that's very exciting. I also think some of it parlays a little bit into our broader conversation about network security and procurement. You know, when you're talking about delivering, you know, medical supplies and emergency response, et cetera. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chad Tillman, the subcommittee chairman of procurement, to introduce a speaker to discuss the procurement topic.
Thank you, committee. Sorry about the video. My computer decided camera was not going to work. But I would like to introduce Ben Tristan. Ben Tristan is, in my book, he is a power user of multiple different systems and working in a very complex environment in the Texas area. And has been using a very wide variety of flight platforms and software platforms, some of which, you know, we have discussed as far as the potential to air gap aircraft from, you know, the manufacturer and other things that might affect the way that we look at that stopgap measure as we move forward. So without any further, Ben, thank you for being here, especially on such short notice.
Sure. Hope everybody can hear me okay. Great to be on the call with everyone. Just a quick introduction. I'm a training instructor for Alto Robotics, specifically on the Dragonfish platform, which is a long-range VTOL. Very easy to operate, but some more complex understanding for just the aviation aspect of it is important for the users to understand, to not send the drone into a difficult environment based off of it constantly moving and things like that. And then I also work for the Texas Department of Public Safety within a criminal investigations unit. We focus on electronic surveillance. A piece of that also includes drone technology, which is used for supporting troops on the ground with their day-to-day operations, crash reconstruction, search and rescue. Had a huge success with drone technology in the floods that we recently had this past summer, as well as various hurricanes. The department's fleet of drones is over 300 pilots. It's diverse equipment from all different manufacturers, and we have a lot of different users that, from, you know, just very basic mapping to complex operations, flying drones with aviation in the same airspace at the same altitudes for hoisting operations and things like that. With the National Guard, we've had great success. I'm not sure if there are some specific questions, or if I know the topic was some of the infrastructure security. I can say that, you know, without getting too far off into the weeds and having IT personnel completely deconstruct all the scripts that are running behind the scenes on the drone, it's very hard to find any documentation that nefarious activities are happening and to actually exactly what it's doing. But to keep the network safe, some of the simplest practices that we've found is keeping any and all equipment off of critical infrastructure networks to where they're off-network devices, off-network hotspots, things like that, as well as using US-based software to deploy on equipment from wherever the manufacturer is, and then we control the access to any network to where it's a closed system, to where the equipment never touches the internet. It's only used in a closed system. as well as using third-party US-based servers to where there's a multiple different avenues that can be utilized to try to safeguard the information if it is information that needs to be safeguarded. Most of the time, mapping a crash or searching for somebody that's lost in the woods, there is little to no risk of it's not considered sensitive information of where the drone is operating. But those are some of the measures that we've taken as a state. I help support that when teaching for Altel and taking different customers' cybersecurity SOPs and being able to implement them with the hardware to meet their policies for whatever they are. So there's different ways that can be done as well. That's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm not sure if there were any questions or anything particular that wanted to a little bit go into more detail on.
Mr. Tristan, I do have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
In your opinion, if we had the ability to completely stopgap any unmanned aerial vehicle from transmitting or receiving any data back to any nefarious agent, would that work, or any data going back to a nefarious source?
To completely stopgap it?
Correct. From any
just on the
outbound
transmission?
internet. Yes, sir. From any internet source.
So it's thinking about it in terms of video is one of the most difficult things to transmit. And when you're working in an operation and you start losing video, there may be other things, the telemetry and the information of where the drone is at may be being passed through that command link, that C2 link. But video is one of the most difficult things to transmit that requires the most bandwidth that the equipment has. So the idea that video is being transmitted all over the world without internet, that is a very difficult task, and would be very interested to see what options there are to have that being done without the use of satellite connectivity. So if for instance, we use a software that's on a closed network, there is no connection to the internet. We're only on the network that we stand up through mesh radios or what have you. So if we have it connected to a server, it's our server, or if it's just within the connection of a LAN environment, local area network, there's no transmission to the outside world other than how far the RF range is of that particular device. And depending on the hardware, that could be a few miles up. The fixed wing that we have has a transmission range of 18 miles. But beyond that, without having some type of infrastructure and antenna system already in place to receive that data, the only other way would be through an internet connection or a satellite connection. So I find difficulty in seeing options for an out-of-the-box drone being able to transmit anything back to an entity without an internet connection.
Thank you. You answered my question very well.
Yes, sir.
Ben, this is Chad. One question I had. You have used other packages like AirData, DroneSense, and other tools like that. How do things like that fit in? And particularly when you're looking at DFR application, using drones in a widespread mesh network to work together in a large airspace environment, and how are you guys handling issues such as BB loss and moving into that?
So the department has BVL loss waivers throughout the state. We have COAs in place along the border that offer up to 1,000 feet AGL, and you can get up to 3 statute miles BV loss with some RGB ground sensors in place that are doing your detect and avoid. That's been fairly easy to obtain. Combining, basically the easiest way to think about it is you're not solely relying on one system to present to the FAA. You're presenting a handful of solutions to render the site, or to keep the flight safe. So it's a redundant system to where if one system fails, there's another one in its place that can do the same task or take on that responsibility for the safety piece of it. And having that redundancy is what it appears that the FAA is looking for, to where it's not one single point of failure. Around the Capitol, we have a DFR. I can't say. I misspoke. Not a DFR, but a drone in the box response that is able to deploy for protests, for Capitol security, for support for the governor, things like that, as well as just for the state police headquarters. I don't really refer to it as a DFR program because it's not actively connected to a 911 or CAD type dispatch, to where it's not receiving the call first. Somebody receives the call request, and then the drone response is activated by a user that's plugged in, is versus a true DFR that it's answering 911 calls, which, the state is more of a support agency as opposed to a PD or an SO. But those are, I would say that, finding companies that can offer white paper on their data security, or companies that are through SDK, such as the Drone Sense or the Air Datas and things like that, they're offering solutions and partnering with, Amazon cloud services and things like that. So they're taking on a lot of the burden of doing the deep dive into the tech to figure those things out. And so from an infrastructure standpoint, you're working with your own internal IT and connecting with maybe a system that you already have figured out that is safe, such as Axon or Versaterm or whatever the company is. Those questions have already been presented and answered. So now they've done the legwork and the homework to figure out the drone piece of it. So you're not bringing on that burden on your own IT to figure that piece out. You're just using what they've already figured out. It seems there's a lot of companies doing that now. At the end of the day, you don't want to kill your entire budget on. I guess the important thing is to diversify the fleet, diversify your tech. So if one needs to be brought offline for some unforeseen concern that hasn't presented itself yet, you can still continue the mission, whatever that mission may be. That's one thing that the department has done very well is our fleet's very diverse. So if one manufacturer has an issue, or maybe there's a firmware, or there's a bug, or there's a glitch, we make the decision, hey, we're going to ground those, pull those offline. Doesn't kill the mission, to where the missions, the daily missions can still be conducted. There's another platform, another manufacturer that can pick up the slack or handle those tasks.
Hey, Ben, very helpful. I was curious, in your opinion or in your position there in Texas, the 2025 NDAA has a federal cybersecurity audit, including around unmanned aircraft. You just mentioned it, diversification. I mean, is there a plan in place if, essentially the federal government laid down some sort of framework that says you can no longer use a specific entity?
So right now, this very instant right now, those talks are being had because it is unknown what's going to happen. And basically, we have such a large fleet right now with such a broad amount of drone coverage that's able to supply the state. If that happens, there's talks of basically making more drone teams that are more specific in their tasks instead of just pilots that are basically deployed all over the state to handle different missions, to where these people may have more specialized equipment that's more expensive that we can't get as many of, so we can't scale as large. So, those systems may be condensed and you have more regionalized type teams, which is going to slow the response drastically compared to what we have now. But right now, those very talks are happening here as well, and it's unknown what's going to happen. Currently, before I'd say within this last quarter. Before, it was very simple, is we would use federal grant money to support the all the things that go along with setting up a drone platform or drone team, monitors, internet connections, all the IT support equipment to expand upon that, and then we'd use internal budget to purchase equipment that maybe we couldn't get through federal grant. And that was working pretty well. We buy the drone and then we use grant funds to get the support things to go around that, to expand on that and make it more deployable versus just one person having a drone. Now that person has, drone, radio, aviation radio, internet solutions, satellite communications, vehicle, inverters, all these things that make that, they're bringing infrastructure to the drone and make the drone a team instead of just a person with a drone, if that makes sense.
No, totally. I think the concern is, if here in Alabama, and I'm sure you see it there, but drones are saving lives. So, the idea of it getting shuttered overnight is concerning. It's really why we set this up, to get ahead of any of that, because, the federal government is doing this audit. And, if we're not prepared with a multi-pronged approach, we could run into some issues. So I think you mentioned perhaps, but is there U.S. software companies that you're using on foreign hardware that bring you a level of comfort? You may have already mentioned a couple. Some of that went over my head, I'm being honest, but yeah.
Sure, yes, sir. So as far as scalability for a very large organization, we use DroneSense. DroneSense does well. It uses the SDK. So it's U.S. software that we install on the drone that uses overseas hardware. Off-network devices are done for updates and things like that, for if there's a bug or a firmware, through the native app, through the manufacturer. But the day-to-day operations, the reporting, the log files, all that stuff is done through a management system that is very simple to use. It is somewhat expensive, but it's very simple, and it simplifies reporting for legislative bodies and things like that. The other solution that works really well for us is more small team, but very secure, which is a platform called Team Awareness Kit, commonly referred to as ATAC, which is the Android version. And that's DoD software off the shelf. You can download it free on Google Play Store. It was originally developed by the Air Force helped develop it. And it is DoD software, which has now been converted to what we know as CivTech, which is used for public safety. And it is a collaboration tool, not just for drones, but in the space of putting your assets on a map to where you can communicate, collaborate, share location data, share server API into this platform, as well as operate your drone fleet. And that can be done within closed networks, to where your devices that connect to Team Awareness Kit and you're using that software, which is US-based, US-made software, now within that bubble or that circle of data flow, it's never touching the internet. You import your maps through verified USB drives and all those security measures. Those are the maps that you use for your area, so you can navigate and know where you're at when you're flying the drones. But the drone never touches the internet. It lives in a closed network. Um, that is a difficult task to overcome when it comes to drone in the box or DFR. You're not going to be able to implement a program like that without having some type of internet connection. Or it would be very difficult to do that and very expensive to stand up a network that could support DFR without cloud-based services. That's brand new. That's still upcoming. No one really knows where the security is going to take us with that. Because you have drones sitting that are always ready to go. That's a whole nother level of security that needs to be considered. But as far as troops that deploy drones, where the officer or the individual responder or whoever's carrying the equipment has the ability to physically open the drone up, connect it to their network that they bring in themselves, there's very there's a lot of security in place to where you're operating on a closed network. You're not touching the internet, so that the vulnerability is greatly diminished.
Thank you, sir. Members of the committee, does anyone else have any questions?
I have a hand from Zale. Am I seeing that right?
Yeah, it's Zal, sir. How you doing?
Sir, how you doing?
Excellent. So my question to you, Benjamin, is that, so what you're saying is when you like hard code a map and stuff, there's basically no national security risks at that point.
Yeah. So I think the easiest way to think about it is think about being on your Wi-Fi at your home or at your easiest way is at your home. If you disconnect your router from your internet service provider, you can still print something on your printer at home. You can still use different equipment that you have connected on your local area network. The drone is the same way. You just have to implement mechanisms to expand the reach so the drone has the ability to work in that environment. That's where mesh radio solutions come in.
That makes sense.
I think that was it. Before we do, I do want to say real quick that I really appreciate the ability to be on the call with everyone here, and it's great to see the collaboration and the work being put into pushing this program further, because how crucial it is for responders having the situational awareness. I mean, it's just huge, whether it be flood or officers dealing with dangerous environments. It's just so helpful having someone with an eye in the sky to tell you that there's danger around the corner before you get to that corner.
Hey, we appreciate you. Appreciate what you're doing over there in our peer state, Texas, and appreciate what you guys do for drones as well. So, Joshua, appreciate you as well with CVS. And just last call. Does anyone have any questions? Any members of the committee? Okay.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
I'm just kind of curious. I'm in Huntsville here, and all kind of like the national, all the bomb squads around the country all show up here at Huntsville and are trained to here. And for you guys, do you all have your own training programs? Everything's decentralized, or is there any type of regional type coordination, or what? Or are you all on your own?
I'm sorry, Pete. Who is that question directed to?
Well, just I guess you, as a Houston guy, or one of the other guys. I mean, is everybody OJT-ing on this, or is there a centralized, clearinghouse for all this, your operations?
So there's NIST. NIST is very popular. There's training and standards. But as far as standardized testing across the nation, it's really up to the agency to put forth their own training program. There are requirements for testing under 107, which to get your FAA license, but public safety organizations do not have to fly under 107. They could simply fly under COA. Then it puts the liability on that jurisdiction that's putting the COA in place. My agency, we have a week-long initial RPIC school that goes on for new guys coming in, and then they have more training that they go to for specialty type skills, whether it be mapping, flying thermal, search and rescue, different things like that. And then there's sustainment training, as well as a yearly in-service where they get new policy update, new things happening within the industry, and then skills proficiency.
But is there any clearinghouse to share lessons learned or anything like this? I know the FBI does that for ATF and the bombs and everything like that. They got a center where all the reports come in and they try and find trends and they send it back out or something like that. There's a couple chat groups where they have meetings just like this, and they'll go over events, whether it be security, safety concern, best practices type thing. We just had one for the flood response. I don't have those links available with me to put them in the chat, but you can email me and I can pass that information to you if you'd like to get on some of those. They're open forums. You can just log on with your organization, and it's just for public safety.
Okay, Pete, I can add to that as well too, because this is kind of what we do. That there are some great groups like drone responders that are nonprofits that support all this stuff. I think the bigger challenge, and I think perhaps what you may be getting at here, is that the big national organizations like the International Association of Chiefs of Police and others like it really have not been able to solidify this into a solid training curriculum. And there's been a lot of work happening in that over the last 10 years since I've been doing this, but nobody's agreed on a standard yet. So because the FBI standard is there because everybody's required to go through the FBI to get it, and that analog doesn't exist on this stuff.
Okay.
I'll jump in on that one as well. It was either this past year or the year before at the drone commercial UAV conference. The Texas Rangers, they had a really good first responder session that the speakers were saying that the Texas Rangers have training materials that they are willing to share with other government agencies. So that's an option as well that we should probably look at.
Thanks.
Adam, you guys have a training program that you're running down there. We here in Huntsville have a training, and we have talked about we need to sit down and talk to each other, figure out what the core training is that we can have, and work on a state-based program that we can pass out, not necessarily mandatory, but something that we can give these agencies as they start up, a core ability to train and fly in specific environments and whatnot. You're here with the bomb squad. Our bomb squad does not go anywhere without at least one drone. They've always got a drone. We're always flying with the bomb squad because we found it to be so valuable and time saving. And I know that Adam's doing some really great stuff in Mobile. So
we have, and we do a pretty intense training and ongoing training, very similar to what you were speaking about, Tristan. We've also held regionally from over to Mississippi to us here. And I'm sure if we did come together for the state to have a model agency of that, we absolutely could.
Yeah, this has been super informative. I'll give kind of last call for any committee members that may have a question. Okay, seeing none, I'll just make a brief announcement. The next meeting we're planning to do in person. We will likely have a call-in line, but we will do an in-person visit with Aaliyah. Want to see a demo of some of the capabilities there. as much as they'll allow. I'm not signing them up for anything necessarily, but looking forward to visiting with them and hearing more about how they're utilized. That said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, and it looks like we got a second there. So all in favor, say aye. Hearing no opposed, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.